Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. Today we're going to be talking with Susan Hylen, who has a book of poems she'll be reading from extensively today in a little online poetry reading, Unravelling My Life Lines, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. I want to acknowledge first that we're meeting on the ancestral homeland of the Suquamish people, the people of the clear salt water, who have lived on the waters and on the lands of joining the Salish Sea since time immemorial. We honor them, and we are very grateful to learn from their stewardship of these lands and waters. This program is sponsored by Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island, which offers assisted and independent living along with memory care, located on their tranquil Rolling Bay campus right around the corner from Bay Hay and Feed. They also have day stay and respite care programs. To learn more, call 206-594-1010. Check their website at fieldstonecommunities.com. Email Ashley C. at fieldstonecommunities.com, or just come by for a tour today. So Susan, or Sue, is with me right here. And thank you a lot for joining us. And I'll just say a little bit about the fact that I'll read from the back of the book here about how you are not only a poet, but a photographer as well. We were talking about how when you were working with the Park District, many of your photos showed up on the front of their catalogs. And we've worked together since I took over as the director of the nonprofit Senior Center in 2017. And this, I think this is your second book of poetry?
Third, actually.
And so you got it done and printed at about what, like 2020, right when COVID was starting? That must have been somewhat frustrating.
It was a bit frustrating, but you just hang in there, and here I am. Thank you.
Great. And you've been involved in the poetry community on Bainbridge for a while. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, in fact, this book is dedicated to Nancy Rico, and which I have my first poem dedicated to her.
And the book itself is dedicated.
Yes, it is dedicated to her. As I met her in 1985 on Winslow Way on Bainbridge Island while she was posting the monthly Bainbridge Island Arts Events calendar. And we talked for a bit, and she invited me to come to the Bainbridge Writers Workshop, and where I began to find my poems in 1985 again.
Great.
So I have been writing since I was a little girl, especially for my grandfather, who loved to get poems for his birthday, which was in December, as mine is as well, and for Christmas. So,
all right. So that was your initial inspiration.
Yes, he was very inspiring.
Great. So let's just start maybe with you sharing that poem about Nancy.
Yes, that's just what I wanted to do, because this reading and this book is dedicated to Nancy Rico. And so I'll just read the poem. Nancy Rico unplugs my poems as my muse begins to breathe, pulsing possibilities, to touch, to behold, to release. Shall I continue? I will continue here. Basically, excuse me. I'm going to start out with a tribute to the trails on Bainbridge Island, for which the agency that I worked for over 30 years, Bainbridge Island Metro Park and Recreation District, takes such good care of. And that is my gym during my retirement. Walking with my words along hilltop trails, syncopating syllables pulsate my poems. This poem was written about 2 years ago, and it's in honor of my 3 grandsons who live here on Bainbridge Island. Afternoon walk to Holly Cove Park. Isaac, age 8, Eric, age 6, Calvin, age 4, skip hop along this forest path through Holly Cove Park. Isaac now stops to admire his favorite stump as Eric and Calvin smile at my camera for a family photo. We continue along the boardwalk, sneakers and boots pattering over a gurgling stream. Isaac finds the path to the beach, low tide stretching wide and far, where Mount Rainier glistens tall and white, where the Bainbridge Island ferry slowly turns into Eagle Harbor. Isaac, Eric, Calvin, searching for seashells with driftwood dreams, along wide stretching sands.
One of the things I like about these poems, so many of them, is they're so placed here on the island. They're delightful as an islander to read and think about where they are.
Thank you. Well, here's the Grand Forest,
Okay.
which I walk almost daily. The Grand Forest. Cedar trunks curl and stretch, tall with tips of hemlock and fir. Alder leaves glisten green above, sword ferns dancing with unexpected breezes. Stumps and burls smile back at me as I walk over twigs and stones. Dirt dry as dust above a river of roots through this forest to sky trail. A long rich passage. This passage, by the way, connects Puget Sound to what's the other side? Let's see. Rich Passage.
Rich passage below the island.
Yes,
That goes
Fort Ward, under Fort
Yes.
Fort Ward.
So it's going from, I guess, open Puget Sound towards where
Bremerton goes, where Bremerton goes, right. So thank you. Along Rich Passage, cormorants guard pier pilings, sea lions honking their songs. 7 geese soar high above through billowing silver gray skies. This next poem is a hike with my husband in the Olympic National Park to Lena Lake, June 12th, 2019. Hike with Stephen to Lena Lake. Stumps and stones beneath our boots test my bones over roots, over riverbed rocks as we climb through old-growth forest, where shadows dance with ancient souls, where glacial rivers roar below. We cross 2 streams over bridges with railings, cedar and fir snagged and built years ago by U.S. Forest Service volunteers. My left palm glides along their smooth, aged limbs, rhododendron petals scattered along our path lined with lupin and bunchberry blossoms. At the end of this descending trail, our favorite lunch spots. At the end of this descending trail, our favorite lunch spot by Lena Creek. Gush rushing over boulders, over branches, shimmering deep glacial blue, beneath the brothers' snow-capped peaks, where wild roses whisper with Lena's offshore breezes. It's a beautiful place. These next 4 poems are in honor of the Centrum Port Townsend Writers Workshop, which I have attended since 1987. Not every year, but it's a very inspiring week of writers, working with writers and creativity. Centrum. Centrifugal force empowers new beginnings. Truths, lies, alibis reverberate words, unraveling my muse through the tip of my pen. And this next poem is in memory of Elaine Summers Helmuth, who was very much part of the Bainbridge Writers Workshop with Bob McAllister and Nancy Rico. And quite a character, which you will find out through this poem. Dear Elaine, I thought of you today on my return trip from the 2017 Port Townsend Writers Workshop, the one you and I attended 30 years ago, when you asked me to drive you to the conference in Jerry's rusty red 76 Ford pickup, plastered with "Make love, not war," "Support Greenpeace," "Support onomatopoeia," "Save a tree," "Wear a condom." I load my bicycle in the back of Jerry's truck, jump into the driver's seat beside you in shades of red violet, flowing skirt, scarves, and shawl, brass earrings, and a smirk at my shocked surprise, leather plush seats with the beaming console over 2 15-gallon gas tanks with a hidden rebuilt engine. I pull the column shift in reverse, back out from Buckland Hill Farm, and drive us west to Port Townsend. This year, when poet Dana Levin introduced herself as a teacher who often cusses, "Hope you don't mind," I felt your left hand tap my right knee with your thumbs up smile. Dana taught us to revise towards strangeness, urgent and driven as an orb weaver, to utter, to be an antenna for the universe. Let the poems speak through you. This afternoon I rode my bicycle along Murden Cove, pedaling up and around Rolling Bay, where your friends Linda and Charles were walking. We stopped to visit, to talk about the Writers' Conference, and your name came up. Then Linda invited me to their home to show me the black and white photograph of you holding an open locket with 2 photos of your ancestors, your large eyes wide and warm with unwritten poems. Elaine was truly an inspiration to poetry on the island as well as to many other wonderful endeavors. Centrum Writers Conference, Port Townsend, Washington, July 19th, 2019. I am told to write a poem in the next 10 minutes by our state poet laureate, Claudia Castro Luna, with 15 poets perched on folding chairs, with pens and notebooks at 8-foot folding white plastic tables arranged in U-shaped formation. In this historic ivory white, green-trimmed schoolhouse with chalkboard walls, peeling white-trimmed painted windows. 2 now opened 4 inches high, aged glass panes mirror the top of the Madrona tree by Alexander's Castle. Above us, a plastered gray-white ceiling, etched with designs like my grandmother's cooking tiles, where 6 smoky white lit lampshades hang from 5-foot metal rods. Above our writing hands and heads, pondering our poems, where school children once sat at wooden desks with slanted hinged lids, taught to raise their right hand before they spoke. There is this beautiful tree at Port Townsend on the campus of Centrum, and it's a Madrona tree, and I just had to write a poem for Madame Madrona, which is the title of this poem. Madame Madrona, your dry fallen leaves scratch my bare calves, your sinuous red limbs stretch out to sea. Limbs lined with peeling bark, branches scattering red, green, gold across this dry field. Your multiple trunks with gnarly eyes. You left the class to come see me? Ah, yes, dear Madame, I did indeed, as I continue to write while sitting on this stone slab bench, where 68 years ago, Sergeant Raymond and Teresa Schmidt were married beneath your branches. Your silhouetting shadows under azure blue skies, billowing summer clouds. Just be here, you tell me. Just be here and write. Follow those swallows swirling over Haldeman Putman's portal where not one shot was ever fired in self-defense. This next section of poems is a tribute to Madeline DeFries, who Nancy Rico invited with William Stafford to come to Bainbridge Island, as well as attend the Olympic College Writers Conference back in 1992. And we got to know each other, and I visited her actually when she wasn't feeling well. She was in a care facility, a remarkable person. She was an ex-nun, by the way, but just one of those treasured people in my life. Madeline DeFries unplugs my poems as my muse begins to breathe unknown sensibilities, to touch, behold, to believe. This next poem happened to be in the 2018 Poetry Corners. Oops, let's hold on a minute.
Excuse me for that.
Doorknob, round, brassy, cylindrical knob, push lock in the center. Right hand fingers squeeze to turn, left, right, both ways. Lick the latch open from the strike plate, mortised in the door jamb, where right and left agree to open, to close, to open, to close, to open. This next poem is the title of my first book of poems, Double Exposure, in 2001, I believe. And it introduces my New England background with my life, my Northwest life here, the overlapping of New Hampshire and Northwest life. Please note that the live free or die was the motto on the New Hampshire license plates for many years. I wanted to give you that information because it's part of the poem. In the Isles of Shoals, it's on the New Hampshire seacoast, where my grandparents' beach house. It looked out, you could look out and see the Isles of Shoals from the beach house, the family beach house. Double exposure. In the middle of a dream, Mount Rainier erupts into the pounding Atlantic as live free or die cars stall bumper to bumper on Route 1A South, New Hampshire, hailing a blue moon morning over the Isles of Shoals. Beyond Murden Cove, gulls soar through azure blue skies, like a lifetime of my father's kites, now free on broken strings, over Puget Sound, over Rye Harbor, over my three brothers searching for sand crabs and starfish in the blink of White Island's lighthouse.
Oh, Susan, that is so cool. Well, you know, I spent summers at Star Island.
Oh, you did?
Well,
wow.
our Unitarian Church had that's right. Where the retreat was over there. They used was the Unitarian Island. But I went there as a kid, and you know, not every year, but you know, 2 or 3 years, and
wow,
that all reminds me so much of all that apple.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Is it okay? I'm going to continue.
Yes, please continue.
Okay, I will continue. The next poem begins with a military saying that my mom often used. Anyway, here it goes. It's called Wake Up and Die Right. Mom shouts with no ifs, ands, or buts about it. My family was a disco dance, spinning inside out, upside down to the rock and roll beat of my heart. My family was a carpet of tidal pools, shimmering starfish and barnacles, where hidden clams spit squirt surprises up my left leg. My family was a jigsaw puzzle, edge pieces framing the broken inside pieces between four corners. This next poem is dedicated to yoga instructor Carol Wallace, who taught yoga for over 40 years at Island Center Hall as part of the Park District programs, and is a dear friend as well. My yoga mat, lavender rubber carpet, rolled upright in a wicker basket with my meditation bench. Brass-hinged folded flaps unfold each morning. I hold my ohms with hips and knees, palms pressed flat on my rubber carpet ride. 5 Tibetan rites reach up, down, round, and round. My muse rising through morning light, wicker basket waiting in the corner. This poem takes place at Lake Memphremagog, where our family would visit my mother's family from Quebec, and at the family Vale Perkins area, and my dad just loved to sail there as well. So this is another tribute to my dad. Title is appropriately Hard to Lee, Dad shouts, then shoves the Mary Kay's thick wooden tiller through huff-blustering winds over Lake Memphremagog's silver swirling waves. His hazel eyes beam through my hazel eyes, our sandy brown hair blowing wild, our backs and butts stretch over starboard, white water gushing through shadows and light. I almost feel I'm on the boat right now. Oh, and this again is for my father, David Coombs Hamblett, July 9th, 1927 to January 31st, 1997. Hudson, New Hampshire, October 1995. Over Musquash Pond. You ride on wings of dragonflies where maples bleed between birch and pine. Memories stretch through the veins of a leaf, swirl drifting with fresh flakes of snow. This poem is a tribute to my grade school experiences at Mount Pleasant Elementary School, which I believe all four of us attended. Grade school. I will cat's cradle my grade school days, stretching the yarn round my thumbs and fingers, left to right between my palms, where I will learn to raise my right hand before I speak, where I will learn to recite the Pledge of Allegiance, the Lord's Prayer, and the alphabet to the rhythm and muse of the mimeograph machine's inky smells on my quiz papers, where I will learn how to be chosen by our teacher to go outside with Betty to clap blackboard erasers clean with chalk dust clouds billowing up all over our twirling, swirling pigtails and skirts, where I will learn to hopscotch back to the girls' side of the playground with Mary Jane and Jill, where we jump rope, double dutching my dreams over fears of air raid drills or being caught chewing bubblegum, then told to sit at my desk with it stuck to my nose, which never happened because of that fear. This is so fun to share with all of you. Thank you. When the news steals joy, I draw my dreams with magic markers on our TV screen. When the news steals joy, I roll out my yoga mat through morning clouds of doubt. When the news steals joy, I pedal my bicycle, passing cars stuck in traffic. I turn right along Manitou Beach Drive, where cormorants perch on tall pier pilings, where sunlight glistens beyond Puget Sound, through Glacier Peak wilderness skies. Yes. The next two poems refer to my bicycle and have their own stories each. February 1989, Bainbridge Island, Washington, before the current traffic light was installed on Madison and Highway 305. Riding to work on my bicycle. Yellow-black rain gear sheds wet winter morning rains, glazing my hands and face, my blinking eyes. I wait at Madison and Highway 305, where vans and trucks speed to the ferry, headlight to taillight. At last a brake to pump across before oncoming traffic begins, like surging tidal waves again and again. Passing fire station number 21, I extend my right arm, signal onto New Brooklyn Road, cycling past Grandma's tree farm, exchanging smiles with left-hand waves for school bus drivers, for two middle school boys, then the boy with his music case who sometimes waves and sometimes not. Now pulling into the car lane as the car behind me slows, then waits for the school crowd to cross, yakking eighth grade dreams. Pedaling up New Brooklyn, I wave to Dave, cycling out his driveway, then left on Sands where a neighbor walks his two dogs. My left-hand wave for the dogs. At High School Road, I turn right up the hill, right again into Strawberry Hill Park, by the Bainbridge Island Historical Museum, bright red with white trim against the steel, wet gray sky, across from the Bainbridge Island Park District office building, where I find my spot to park, lock up, strip off my rain gear, walk into my office, and write this down.
And it shows where things have changed, right? I mean, there are now traffic lights, and the historical museum is hopped on a train and gone somewhere else.
Yes, just come right downtown here, which I thought was a very smart move. Okay, this next poem is a very powerful poem that also involves my bicycle. Room 369. The ivy hums through my right arm veins as sun rises above Smith Tower, exhaling daylight across Elliott Bay. I blink at the burlap board at the end of my bed. Harborview, Seattle, Washington. Yesterday, we meet for the first time with a marriage counselor. After the session, you drive home and I ride my bicycle to the library to pick up a book the counselor recommended. Stuff it in my bike bag, then follow the 520 ferry traffic turning right. In the corner of my left eye, a silver hood keeps coming while I focus on the traffic light. Snapped black. I float above too many people and cars, too busy parking and moving, my eyes open to focus the blur above my canyon-cracked mind, where questions babble over like a cool wash. Someone in white wheels me out under checkered asbestos ceilings to wait with X-ray machines, computers, and a television blaring the president's affairs. The receptionist is reading the Holy Scriptures while her assistant answers the phone. Radiology, let me transfer you to the front. The lab technician places my body on a cold steel table. Lie still, please, beneath machines purring and blinking, up and over my skull and spine, over the ache of twisted limbs and muscles thrown by that car turning into the sun from the left lane, into the windshield, 21 feet over pavement. I turn over and shiver against the icy slab as the shutter releases again and again. Back in my room, telephones become sparrows, and I can hear stars in the hallway bells. Watching the ferry cross Puget Sound, I doze off, waiting for your smile, fingering our rings.
Hmm.
And this one is for Stephen. Sunday, July 13th, 2009. Raspberry morning. You are alive with your Tulamine raspberries, roots buried deep under mulching leaves. No fertilizers, no sprays, no water. Just let the vines be to grow as they will. I hear them now calling you back. Ruby bellies with thornless vines, white bucket between your thighs, both hands free to pick with that rhythm you knew as a child. When vines were full of thorns, you wore long socks with finger holes to pick quickly without scratches. Between berry fights and farmers' orders, no leave until those vines are clean. Riding that rickety mustard bus home each night, you clutched the bills inside your pocket, enough to pay for school clothes. Late morning sky, now thick with thunder, dry soil laps up singing rains, laughing through backyard grasses. As I begin to wash old jam jars, find lids, measure too much sugar. Time to put the water on to boil, then save what I can, in a jar, in a photograph, in a poem. Those are the treats. Just a couple more here towards the end. Thank you so much for listening. First Avenue, Pioneer Square. This is the longest title of any poem I've written. While waiting to read my Seattle Metro bus poems at the Elliott Bay bookstore, my fingers trace the mortar of along these wall-pasted red bricks. Fluted green smoke glass lamp illuminates. Thank you for not smoking. The room converges with poets, artists, name tags, programs, and extra folding chairs. The mic is poised over the podium, framed by a blank screen. Below this light blue basement ceiling are thousands of authors with millions of words. I have 2 poems to read tonight. 40 words in the second poem, 61 in the first. As the room begins to hush, I see my poems riding the buses tonight somewhere in Seattle. While I wait, someone will find my words. These final 2 poems, I want you to know, illuminate the fire and the rain in my life, both for which I am most grateful. For Stephen, as you asked me to write a poem about building a fire, how to keep it going. I begin to split the last chunk of cedar to crackle and burn over last night's times. I keep the stove door open, staring for the moment to crisscross the leftover 2x4s you brought home off the job. The door now closed, the vent half open, you unlace your mud-wet boots, then pour wine. A few minutes more are enough to simmer the stew as we take turns talking and stoking the fire. Final poem. 6:15 a.m. Rain, rain, ping, ping, pinging rain, dancing down my window panes. Drumming, syncopating songs, unraveling my lifelines again and again. Thank you so much for listening. Very much appreciated. And thank you, Reed, for the opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. So Unraveling My Lifelines is the book. And I think I looked, it wasn't available when I looked at Eagle Harbor.
It is available.
But it is
there.
available
Yes,
now.
I have more books I'm going to bring over.
Excellent. So if you're interested, Eagle Harbor Books. Thank you very much for sharing.
Or can get in touch with me too.
Okay, or contact Sue. And for unraveling a few of your lifelines with us today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Reed. This has meant so much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.